Hi everyone, welcome to Dear BAMf, the show for PR and marketing pros like you, hosted by Beck Bamberger of BAM. BAM is a communications agency that believes stories move the world. We move stories forward for technology-driven brands that challenge, change, and create entire industries. Today, on the Dear BAMf podcast, we're talking with Nick Kim, principal at Crosscut Ventures. He makes pre-seed and seed investments at Crosscut and works with their founders to help grow the business. Let's dive in.
Hey everyone, welcome to Dear BAMf podcast for all the PR, comms, marketing problems that are in the world. We just try to solve them and have a good time solving them because there's always questions and things to solve. Appreciate you listening. I'm Beck Bamberger and I run BAM, which is an agency that works with all venture-backed technology startups, and then also One Pitch, where we're helping journalists connect better with publicists. That might be you listening to this. And today we have someone I know and I love, and I'm so happy you're here, Nick. Nick Kim, who's now a principal at Crosscut Ventures. He used to sit more in the seat of marketing and comes from a great background based in LA. Nick, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Beck. It's great to be here.
We got problems to get through and all these good stuff, so we will get rolling here. First off, do you want to give us just an overview on what Crosscut Ventures is focused on?
Crosscut Ventures is an early stage venture capital fund based in LA. We make investments at pre-seed, seed, and sometimes Series A. We support entrepreneurs through lead positions on boards and lead positions as investors, but we also get involved at various stages of the company and don't have to take those positions necessarily. We invest mostly in technology and technology-enabled services. The fund has a long history of investing in various categories that mostly have tracked to the way that LA has developed over time. But most recently, we've been spending a lot of time in prop tech, fintech, enterprise SaaS, the modern data stack, health tech, and commerce enablement.
And is that what you mean by how LA has tracked in terms of like emerging markets or industries for LA?
Exactly. I joined the firm 3 years ago, but the firm's been around since 2008. And so in the early days of the fund, you might have seen brands, commerce, MarTech, ad tech, the things that LA was really known for back in that time. But today, LA has pure software businesses, aerospace businesses, and aerospace, just as a side note, has been a big industry in Southern California for a very long time. But I think that the entrepreneurial ecosystem in aerospace in LA has really thrived over the last few years. And so, yeah, over time, we've gotten a lot more involved in some harder tech, some frontier tech, et cetera. And we're excited about those companies that we're backing today.
LA has really just done such a great job expanding beyond just, entertainment, aerospace, like some of these things that you just are like, that's only what it's known for. No, it's done a great job in widening its space. I think a lot similarly to New York, which was like, that was just like, media and big media finance. It's like, no, New York has a lot more on consumer and a variety of other prop tech. Exactly. And yeah, it's cool to see.
Yeah. And you guys are at least talking to one of our New York-based companies who is working in prop tech.
Yes, we are. Speaking of, and we got a couple in the Crosscut family, so we like to keep it close. Yes. Help you guys be successful and all that good stuff. Plus, really cool companies. Well, what are you most, I think I know your answer, Nick, because I know you a little bit personally, but what are you most proud of accomplishing? Let's go professionally and personally in the last, year-ish in this troubled time that we've been in.
I'll start on the professional side. I think, first of all, this has been a really tough time for everybody. And just being able to show up for work every day and do the job that you are set out to do is hard enough. I think I'm most proud of our team coming together and using this as an opportunity to look at the way we do this business and really sort of radically question everything that we do. And over the course of especially the last several months, we've really started to think differently about what seed investing means, what it means to run this firm, the types of investments that we can be making, and specifically what that means is expanding the scope of the stages of companies we invest in. We are closing on an SPV this week and have several more coming this month that we are super excited about. And these are some of our portfolio companies that we're investing at the later stage. So just thinking about the business a little bit more creatively has been one of the things I'm most excited about accomplishing over the last 12 months. On the personal side, I'd hardly call it an accomplishment of my own. I think my wife played a much bigger role in making this happen. But we just had a baby 5 months ago, a little girl named Luna, and we are over the moon. She's incredible.
Wait, and you said her name's Luna. Isn't that,
Yeah.
Doesn't that mean moon?
It means moon.
Well, see, then how fitting is that? You did your own little pun there. I love it. Okay. Looping back though on the professional front, just because I would be curious about this. I don't know for listeners' standpoint, but when you're radically looking and reconsidering things as a fund, what does that mean? Or what did that trickle out to mean?
So, without
the secret sauce being spilled,
And there's no secret sauce here. It's really, we started to look at the business and say, how would we think about this business differently if we took an abundance mindset about all the resources or things that we need? And so as a firm, one of the things that you are constrained by is the size of your fund, the stage you invest in, and the categories you invest in, et cetera. But what we found is in our role as sort of generalist VC investor in LA with 13 years of experience under our belts, we see a lot of great opportunities that don't necessarily fit the narrow scope of the fund itself. And rather than saying, well, we can't do this for XYZ reasons, we say, what needs to be true for us to do this? And how would we back this founder who we met too late, or in some cases too early, or whatever the case may be? We now look at all of the great opportunities that we see and say, is there a world we do a deal here? And again, some of that means we do direct investments via an SPV, where we go to our sort of existing LP base or bench of investors who like to participate in those things. Does it mean starting a scout program where we now have empowered almost a dozen people to write checks on our behalf at really early stage companies? We're just sort of putting ourselves out there more to say, we want to back the best people, and whether you fit in the sort of exact stage that our fund invests in or not, we will find ways to back you regardless.
I bet you've been able to get a lot more than through the door in considerations of where to park some checks, which is great.
Yeah, we're super excited about what that's doing. It's early. We have a lot to learn still, and we have some opportunities we're really excited about and are closing on soon. But we also have, these are new initiatives that we're taking on rather than longstanding things we've been doing for a while. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we will see. Okay. Then the last thing, Nick, before we get into your questions, what's your favorite way to tell a story right now?
It's a great question. I still think my favorite way to tell stories is with my voice and like actually saying them. And I haven't really explored, I was on Clubhouse, and it seems like there's less happening there now.
Yes, I know.
And, I'll do the occasional thing on Instagram. To be honest with you, at this point, I'm more of a consumer of stories than I used to be when I was writing a little bit more. But I still love writing. I think for me, writing, and when I mean writing, I mean like longer form writing. I saw a really interesting illustration of this concept from David Perell, but it was essentially like reading is putting together like the dots on an illustration. So it's like kind of the outline of a dog, for example, with dots. But writing is kind of connecting the dots.
It is.
And making the image come to life. I love writing because it helps me learn myself, and it helps me kind of digest and better understand the things that I'm thinking about. And so for me, we write deal memos all the time. I find myself writing a lot these days, just less in public. And I think deal memos, as boring as they may be to some people, a lot of it is storytelling about why an opportunity is compelling for us to invest in.
Oh, okay. So are you doing those memos?
Of course. Yeah.
That's you. Oh, you get a little bit of story writing in there then. Yeah. You got to paint a story.
You learn as a kid, show, don't tell, right? It's like the exact opposite. It is like tell the facts in as dry and and direct of terms as you can. So it doesn't flex that kind of creative writing muscle. But again, it really helps you connect the dots and consolidate information and condense it into stuff that makes you truly understand it versus like it floating around in your head in uncertain terms.
I like that. And then are you doing like your own writing as a new dad, journaling, or like as a stress release? Like, are you doing fun writing?
I wish I was doing more of it. The thing I wrote most recently, which actually wasn't that recent now, was as the new year turned, Luna was about a month and a half, 2 months from being born.
Oh, yeah.
I wrote her like a little letter about like where I was in my life and where her mom is. And so I don't know when I'll give that to her, but
oh my God.
It was my favorite thing. I still haven't read it since then, but it felt so good in the moment. And I know at some point I'm going to be really happy I did that.
Oh my gosh. Is it like on a piece of paper in an envelope all sealed and stuff? Like,
it's funny you say that. I started to do that. And then like 2 pages later was like, I'm not even 10% of the way through this thing. I need to actually type this out.
Oh, wow.
It's all in a doc. Maybe I'll handwrite it at some point to make it feel more special when I hand it to her. But
yeah. I love that. I have saved all my letters from my dad.
Oh.
And he has like that magical, baby boomer cursive that's perfect, that they don't teach anymore, that type of thing.
It'll be in a museum one day.
Exactly. Oh, the penmanship, just unbelievable. Anyway, I love it, Nick. Okay, well, we got some hairy questions. Let's see what we can get out of here for everyone asking. Dear BAMf, one of our clients got mentioned by name at a niche but very important conference in a negative light. Some competitors were mentioned as well, but we're the dominant player in the space. Now we have customers who are reluctant to be used for our media outreach. 3 so far have pointed to this particular conference as why. We're a tech company that handles sensitive information, and we've never had a problem at all. What can we do to proactively get ahead of this issue, even though it's not yet a media issue or crisis?
I feel like there's a line in here that you probably know better than I do about never allowing a great crisis go to waste.
That's true. That's true.
I thought about this a lot. I think I'm of 2 minds about it, right? On one hand, you don't want to sort of get out there and show all these other people who weren't a part of that conference or like didn't get exposure to that already to see it when, so sort of to contain it. On the other, I sort of view this as an opportunity, especially if you're a leader in the space, to use it as an opportunity to educate your customers on what it is you do with sensitive information and all the steps you're taking to sort of come out and say, look, we're very proud of what we do in this space and we're leaders here and want to continue to be leaders. And so using this as an opportunity to come out and talk about those either values or specific steps you're taking, et cetera, could be a really good way to build trust with your customers instead of the other way around.
Mm-hmm. We just covered this on another podcast of like fire with fire. Don't throw sand on a fire. Sand meaning something that's just like not the same medium in a sense. So although there is nothing in press at this moment, is there anything then in your own conference? So like kind of your own fire in a sense. Is there anything else in a public forum, maybe on your blog or on a webinar or something of that sort? I don't think it's appropriate to say kind of in a defensive way anything on social media necessarily, but clearly there has been impact. And so fighting fire to fire means like, okay, giving and responding to the notice of this in ways that are of the same level as what just happened at another conference. So the ideal thing, like magic wand, would be like, oh great, well we're having our own conference the next week and we're going to address this and like in the room of our people or something like that. But of course that would be like magical fantasy level. So perhaps in this case, it's like, okay, can you proactively have something that's posted on a blog or showcasing? And it doesn't have to be directly, last week at the conference and blah, 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 this and this happened. But is there anything else blog-wise, material-wise, or even in the press that showcases the opposite of what was credited at this conference? Can you prove it otherwise? And that's the kind of fire with fire thing I'm talking about.
Yeah, I love that. That's why they pay you the big bucks to handle this stuff for them.
Hey, there you go, Nick. There you go. Yes. Okay, next question here. Dear BAMf, what are your thoughts on hosting live virtual events that are open to the public to ask questions regarding large funding IPO news, e.g. a Reddit AMA or a Facebook Live interview session? Personally, this just feels like there's too much potential risk involved that it outweighs any potential reward. Have you heard of anyone doing this for news like this?
I haven't heard of anybody doing this in particular. I really want to hear your answer to this question. But I sort of look at this question and have more questions than answers, I think. Like, what would the goals be of doing this forum, right? Like, what are you hoping to achieve by doing this? There are a ton of operational questions I would have about the execution of this. Like, I think that there are ways to mitigate the risks. And I'm not even sure I know what the risks are in this person's case and what they're worried about. But everything comes down to execution, right? I think that there's likely a way to do this in a successful way that both accomplishes the goal while minimizing any risks. For what it's worth, like, public companies do their quarterly earnings calls all the time. These are companies that have large fan bases, but also large detractor bases, and they seem to go well. And they tend to be pretty limited as far as who can ask questions and how truly public it actually is. But I go back to, like, if this is truly something you want to do for some reason, rather than, the way I would approach it is, rather than look at it and say, should we do this or not? Is this the best way to accomplish the goal that we're trying to accomplish? And if so, if that answer to that question is true, then what needs to be true about how we do it to minimize the risks that we're worried about?
Mm-hmm. I also kind of wonder, like, open to the public. Why? Why do you need open to the public? That sounds dangerous right there, because you can have any lunatic pop into a channel or something like that. This is where, working through media, you can control, to some extent, the narrative and what you want to project. Now, are there trolls? Are there people on the internet all over the place? Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. But it doesn't need to be directly live on a back and forth one-on-one. I'm kind of wondering too, of just like, what company would be of like that size and caliber that there'd be enough of a public interest, if you will? Like, who's going to show up for this? If you're a public company on your quarterly, your investors show up for those calls, and it's a pretty dry and stated thing. So I'm just kind of wondering here. We don't have enough of the context, but this is interesting. Next thing here, Dear BAMf. If some of media's longest standing publications have seen serious staff and readership reductions, in many cases preceding the pandemic, why are news media outlets like Inverse, The Hustle, and LifeWire, or somewhat older examples, Quartz and The Information, not just emerging, but thriving? Is something shifting consumers' trust or interest in media? Shouldn't the traditional pubs have the resources to keep up with the youngins? Oh, this is like the biggest question ever, of course.
Yeah, there's a lot in here. I, of course, am going to take somewhat of a tech response to this. But
Sure.
You know, I think in the past, these long-standing publications were serving a variety of different consumer segments all at once. And you can see it with, like, the New York Times, for example, who has cooking and puzzles and world news and New York news and the kids section and business section and the society section and all of that stuff. And so they had these huge newsrooms that were speaking to everybody, but the reason they needed to be consolidated was because of distribution. And so they owned distribution of getting these papers into people's homes. Now, as the internet has evolved so much, and especially over the last several years, the rise of sort of new content creators who are focused on specific small niches. I mean, you look at Substack and there are people who focus on really small categories and have a bunch of fans who are willing to pay them directly to get their information. I was talking to a friend of mine who has, we didn't even mention the sports section in the New York Times. My friend was talking about a Yankees reporter who was likely salaried, working for a publication for a long time, and now just writes his own Yankees super niche-y, kind of like really deep baseball analysis publication, and likely makes more money doing that, probably by orders of magnitude, because he has several thousand subscribers who are willing to pay a small fee every month that ends up adding up to a lot of money. And so, to go back to the question, I don't know if it's shifting consumers' trust or interest in media, because consumption, I think, is probably the same. It's just that where you're getting that media and the ability to get that media so directly from the content creator who you want to get it from specifically is making it so that you don't, and a lot of this, again, is because distribution is so much easier today than it was when these publications were first founded. And so I think it's less about trust and interest and much more about distribution and the ability for these amazing content creators, whether they're covering food or tech or sports or whatever, to reach the audiences that really sort of vibe with what they're looking for.
Mm-hmm. The question of this becomes, and I talk about this on the other show that I do for One Pitch when I have the journalists on, is like, oh, what's the future of journalism like? And it's like, can we survive in this subscriptions and newsletters and a Substack? Because your budget for that could easily be $200 a month. If you're like signing up for all these like niche things. And even a reporter today I was talking about, he's like, oh God, I have like 30 tabs open just trying to read all through the newsletters, so there is a level of saturation that comes with this, and the time will definitely tell. I don't know what to tell you in terms of that. I would say for this writer or this person who's asking about this, yes, there's definitely people who are bucking the trend and evolving and reconsidering their ad traffic or how they monetize. Events have been something that have definitely been more emerging, obviously not now because of the pandemic, but that's been an area. Awards even have been a revenue maker for a number of publications. It is a constantly evolving stream. I also think that, unfortunately, you have to look at follow the money. Where are these outlets being funded? From billionaires? From grants? Probably from billionaires. Like, that's a whole other area that's being looked at, is like, okay, wait, is democracy's solution for free press just having billionaires do it? That's a little dicey, right? So we're yet to see. But I'd say for this person, because it sounds like they're dealing with media, hey, if that's a thriving outlet, Business Insider, by the way, is another one of those. Pitch away. Champion that person when they read their stuff. Like, champion them when they get hired there and all those great things. Because there's so many good journalists out there just trying to still have a great place to tell their stories and make impressions and change culture and have an imprint in society. So celebrate it while it's there. And if it's an outlet growing, great.
Yeah, and I'll add to that, there are so many platforms right now.
Yeah.
And it can be very noisy and it can feel like insane to try to keep up with everything. But at the end of the day, I do believe that great content finds eyeballs. And if you are creating great content, there's just never been a better time to find the people who are looking for your content and to
that is true.
Be in control of your future about who you're writing for or producing for, what you're saying. A lot of these people don't have editors and they can write truly what they want to write, and their real voice comes through and they can take risks. And I think that is just good for content creators, and it's also good for consumers.
Yes, there's never been a time to have your voice out there, whether it's on video, you're dancing, whether you want to write, you want to send it to people in email. I mean, wow, what a time. Not the case 50 years ago. It's amazing in a sense. But it's too much in the other. That's the other side of the coin of this. It's like, oof, man.
How do you keep up?
I say I have a crisis of content since the pandemic. There's too many great things to listen to, watch, all the stuff. And there's just a high quality too.
Totally.
My God. That's my problem. What a great time though. I'd rather be here in America than another place where no content, no nothing. So, hey, gotta count your blessings in a sense. Anyway, Nick, thank you for being on today. Those are all the problems we have.
Okay.
We don't have more for now. And that's what we got. So thank you again.
Thank you so much. This was really great.
This was fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And congrats on your baby.
Thank you so much, Beck.
Thanks for listening to Dear BAMf, the advice podcast for PR and marketing pros like you. Our show was created by BAM, a PR and marketing agency headquartered in San Diego and New York City. The music you're enjoying today was composed by Tiffany Dizon, produced by Daniel Kessner, and played by San Diego Symphony's Art of Alam. If you have a tough PR and marketing question you'd like us to answer, write to us at bamtheagency.com/Dear BAMf. Don't forget the F. If you'd like to get notified of our latest episodes, subscribe to us wherever you listen to podcasts and review us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.